fires one towards the goal. That's going to be gloved by Travis Ridgen. Well, this is more like it.
This is Slangin The Bizkit. Here's Travis Ridgen and Dave Wheeler.
Ladies and gentlemen, lads and ladies, I am joined by the pride of Nova Scotia, quite possibly the most famous goalie coach to ever come out of the city of Halifax. He has played and coached countless years, I believe 7 and counting, coaching professionally in Norway, Denmark, Germany. He's coaching with the Ravensburg team last season. He's going to be moving up to a different team in the Del 2 next season, correct?
Yep.
His name is Jack Hartigan. He coaches Finn Goalie. We're here in his incredible facility here in Halifax, Bedford, Nova Scotia. I got grilled on that the other day for posting about that.
Yeah, so been coaching for the last 12 years. I started Finn Goalie hockey training 12 years ago. Been goalie coaching probably for 15 years, 16 years. I played junior hockey, and then I played a bit of minor pro, very, very lightly minor pro. I played in Finland for 4.5 years, and then that was pretty much it for my pro career. I realized at a pretty young age that I wasn't as good as goalie as I maybe could have been as a goalie coach, so I pursued goaltending after a few bad knee injuries and finished up my school in Finland. So I started goalie coaching at a young age, and that's kind of how I got into goalie coaching. I had some great opportunities here in Halifax. There wasn't really a whole lot of goalie coaches around when I entered the market, and got a great job here with Bedford Minor Hockey when I first started out, and that was really the start of my goalie coaching career. A great guy and former NHL goaltender, Sean McKenzie, helped me out getting a job with Bedford Minor Hockey full time as a goalie coach. So yeah, he kind of kickstarted everything. He got me into goalie coaching. So that was what seems like decades ago now, but yeah, that's kind of where it was at.
Now, to rewind though, so you're playing junior hockey, you end up going over to Finland. Why?
I got lucky. I was looking at going to college. Had some college opportunities, and I was all set to go to college after my junior. I played down in the States in junior A there, and then basically I had this wonderful opportunity to go play for a team called the Varkaus Eagles, and they were the first team to ever play in Europe with all North Americans for a full season. And it was all North Americans, a hodgepodge of guys from college, D1, D3, CIS, a few guys that were coming out of major junior, and we kind of came together. And the whole hook was that we could go to school. We got our school paid for, so we all went there and played in the team started out in the 4th league, and then we won the 4th league and moved up to the 3rd league. So it was a pretty cool experience, and not a lot of people know about that team. It was a pretty fun year. The team only lasted a year. They went bankrupt after the first year, but ended up hooking on with a couple other teams when I was there, and stayed and finished my school. So it was great. It was a great experience, and actually that got me into learning about Finnish goaltending and having a great Finnish goalie coach, and actually goalie coaching with the youth there. I got to learn the whole Finnish system, which everybody at the time was going crazy about because of all the unreal Finnish goalies that were in the NHL at the time, and guys like Pekarinen, and there's all kinds of them in the Kiprusoff, and yeah. So it was really, when I first started Finn Goalie, it was really a hot thing. The Finnish goalies, what were the Finnish goalies doing? And then the Swedes were right there too. So everybody was wondering what they were doing in Scandinavia.
And so to back that up for a second, so you went to school because in Scandinavia the schooling is free, correct?
Yes.
Is that a European thing or a Scandinavian thing?
In Finland, it's free. If you're a Finnish resident, it's 100% free. I don't know if it's still like that, but it definitely was when I was there. I even remember some people said that they get some bursaries to actually get paid to go to school and graduate. So, so that was a great thing. A lot of guys. There's a couple guys on our team that went and did their engineering degrees, and they're from the U.S., so they were looking at it like, I don't have to have $100,000 debt coming out of college. So.
And now you're in the green books for $100,000, and then you get your education.
Yeah, so they came out with a good engineering degree, and I studied. I wasn't that smart, so I studied marketing and international business. So yeah.
And how did that come into play for the Finn Goalie side of things?
Oh yeah, for sure. The marketing, obviously, that's what I was really into. The marketing stuff was big, and I was always into like graphic design stuff, so did graphic design courses there. Wish I had paid attention more in the accounting department and all that kind of stuff, taxes and whatnot. But that's you always regret something from university, right? So
so you're obviously Finn Goalie. You guys are partnered with Brian's. I got to give a shout out to the former Brian's rep, Chris Josriak. I remember him telling me one time, he's like, in university I went to school, did accounting, whatnot. I've never used it since then. And now that whenever we have our accounting meetings for Brian's, I just sit there and I just sit in the back and I just wait for an hour to go by. I don't know what's going on. I have no clue.
Yeah, no, it's that's we've been with Brian's for, actually we're a retailer here. We have a store now and a facility, so we're a retailer here, and so Brian's has been unreal all the way through. They're unreal gear, great quality. There's stuff that's made at the factory is great, and there's stuff that's made in the Philippines is unreal too. So it's definitely good quality stuff.
So the Finnish style of goaltending is what I wanted to get into for a second. So when I hear Finn Goalie, when you talk about basically doing a bachelor's degree of education or of goaltending in Finland, like what did you learn? What was so different? What was a part of this hot spell of the Kiprusoffs and the Niedermäkis and the Backstroms coming out of?
Well, yeah, I think this is something that I studied, like still studying a little bit too to today. But when I first started, I went over to Goalie Pro, which was Jukka Ropinen's company, and he was one of the first guys. I think he started the very first Finnish goaltenders education program, which was in the 80s. I think it was late 80s. So they've actually had a goalie coaching program since like 1986. And I got to learn a lot about how they have their, all their different levels that they have and how structured they are. And how like every minor hockey team, every youth team, all the pro teams, they all have goaltending coaching and like consistent goaltending coaching that nobody has to pay for, other than your registration for the team. Like it's all provided through the Finnish Ice Hockey Federation and the youth hockey. And us growing up, we probably barely had consistent goalie coaching. It's getting better now. You're seeing more associations kind of hiring full-time guys and whatnot. But I kind of went out on this whole mission to learn this whole system because I wanted to bring it back to Nova Scotia and implement it into the minor hockey that I was working at in Bedford, which I had successfully done over the last 10 years. I really implemented a goaltending program there, especially the 5 years I was working there. We getting goaltending coverage and goalie coaching coverage, and then obviously trying to push the envelope with Hockey Nova Scotia and Hockey Canada to get more goalie coaching provided through the federation. And I was lucky enough to be part of the meetings and some of the projects with Hockey Canada on developing the level 1, 2, and 3. So we've had that kind of developed with Hockey Canada for 5 years, I think now, 5 or 6 years. So it's good to see them finally have a goalie coaching certification program. It's still not as refined as what is in Finland and Sweden, but it's a step forward. I mean, it's hard to believe that almost 10 years ago there was you couldn't even go get your goalie coaching certificate in Canada if you wanted to.
And when did the whole certification thing in Hockey Canada start taking place? Like when guys could become a certified goalie coach by Hockey Canada?
I believe the first one was rolled out 6 years ago, officially. Goalie parents and first-time goalie coaches that want to learn a little bit about the foundations about goaltending. And then the level 2 is a little bit more advanced for guys that are goalie coaches, and then level 3 is that just started last year, or 2 years ago, sorry. Was that's more like a university course. There's like 20 post tasks you got to do throughout the year, and then they all get together in Calgary and do a full week together to get certified. And that's a little bit more selective. I think there's one representative usually a year pushed by the provinces, and that's kind of how the level 3 rolls. But yeah, the level 1's basically for anybody. We try and get as many coaches as possible to have it, so they have it on the bench. So there's always one coach on the bench that has some kind of goaltending knowledge. Might not be perfect, and they're still encouraged too to hire private goalie coaches to their practices and whatnot, the experts, as they say.
And they just had that convention recently, right? Last month, I believe?
Yeah, it was last month. Yeah, there was one last month in Calgary, yeah.
Is there a level 4?
No, there's no level 4.
Well, if there was, we started the amazing team at Sheath Underwear. SheathUnderwear.com.
Yeah.
Presenting sponsor for this show. if you're a goaltender or if you're a goaltending coach in Canada, you got to get a pair of Sheath Underwear, and I'll tell you what. Sheath Underwear has pioneered the incredible dual pouch technology. It is a separated, segregated compartment to put your dick and your balls into. So when it's humid, like it is in here, you're not bat winging to the side of your leg. You're staying comfortable. You're staying cool, aerated, just the way that you want it. And they're awesome, incredible. Cooling bamboo mesh technology helps to accelerate that process of comfortability. And right now, you go to the link in the video description on the YouTube podcast or on the podcast notes on Apple or Spotify. You click the code sheathunderwear.com and you enter the promo code BIZKIT69, BIZKIT 69. That'll get you 20% off the best underwear money can buy. The goalie coaching community, I think, is one of those things that is just so... There's a lot of egos involved. There's a lot of, to an extent, pissing contests over information, over drills and whatnot. Like when I tell you, or when I ask you, what do you see in the goalie coaching realm in 2023? What do you see?
Yeah, well, I've been really fortunate with connecting with goalie coaches, not only from running the goalie coaching programs here, and we always had mentorship programs here where we bring guys in usually during our pro week and having different guys from all over, like Justin Goldman would come in and all kinds of guys, and we'd open it up to guys that could apply to come to the mentorship program. But also I've been involved with the GGR, the Global Goalie Retreat with Justin Goldman, and just selling pegs and my Xtractor and other products. I get to interact with goalie coaches pretty much every day that usually you wouldn't get to interact with. And I think it's like, I think it's getting way better. Like, and I was saying this to you at the dinner table earlier, you could sit 15 goalie coaches here in a room right now, and if they were all from different countries or different provinces, they'd all be best friends, lifelong friends. I think the only time you see really any conflict is when you got or anybody even saying negative about another goalie coach is when, maybe they're in the same business realm, I guess, or the same business area, and they're competing against each other maybe for a few dollars here and there. But I think it's got improved at like 110% since when I first started. Because I remember when I first started, it was a lot harder to get information. There was no network goaltending or global goalie retreats. There just wasn't any conventions or anything for guys to go around and connect face to face. And online community was just starting up. Like, I don't even know if Instagram even existed back then. It was just a whole new thing, right? So it's just starting up, right? So
I don't know if you ever remember, there was a website, and I could be wrong, it was called like Goalie Forum or Goalie Page.
Yeah, the Goalie Forum, yeah. Or Goalie Board, I think.
Goalie Board, excuse me. The original community for gear, for drills, for everything, and it had posts every other day from somebody. Yeah, that was a classic. That was a classic goalie social network, I guess. Exactly. One question for you though: the GGSR or the GGR, the Global Goaltending Retreat. There we go. Hot take. I think it's Justin Goldman's way of just getting in the Rocky Mountains. Like the area there when you guys are out there and everybody's posting it looks beautiful, stunning out there. Yeah. So obviously, me and Justin go way back. And he's actually the one who put us in touch and got us.
Yeah. And we were all out here at the camp together, right? So, yeah. Stood at his wedding, was his best man. So, yeah. But me and Justin were tight for a long time. So Justin was coming up here, and actually, I don't know the year you came that we did a convention here. We used to do the East Coast Goaltenders Convention, and Justin was doing his network stuff too, the network conventions. But the Global Goalie Retreat was his kind of brainchild. He wanted to bring everybody out to. He lives in just outside of Denver, and you go up an hour up into the Rocky Mountains there, and there's just these unbelievable, beautiful chalets and ski resort towns. So that time of year, it's like they call it mud season. So it's really like relaxed there. It's a little bit out of season. So it's a great time to go up there and bring all the goalie coaches, kind of disconnect from everything. And his whole theory behind the whole thing was to bring in as many goalie coaches from around the world that you could and help out. So we had like goalie coaches from Mexico, Ukraine, Australia. There's like all kinds of different goalie coaches from countries that you wouldn't even imagine had goaltending or hockey. But so there's always like a mix of different goalie coaches from every country, and there's Finnish guys there and Swedish guys every year. So it's it's always really cool just to connect with other coaches, especially from around the world. And obviously there's a mix of U.S. and Canadian guys there too, a few experts. So it was pretty. It's pretty unreal too. And his whole thing there is they bring in a lot of experts from outside of goaltending. There's always like mental training and vision training and all kinds of, Maria Mountain's there every year doing her thing, doing unreal stuff with the off-ice goaltending stuff. So it's just a phenomenal program. And if you get a chance to go or get a chance to get into it, it's a great program.
So roughly how many goalie coaches go out?
It's around 40. Yeah, it's around 40 after everything's said and done. I think that was the biggest one this year was 40.
And so Justin reaches out, invites different goalie coaches, pay for their own way, everybody comes out and everybody networks essentially?
Yeah, I think a lot of people reach out to him and now it's gotten to the point where every year he can't take everybody, but he tries to get everybody in, but usually it's the goalie coaches that are, really want to get in, guys from Mexico and stuff, and the guys from Australia, like they're coming in and they're really learning and taking a lot back to their countries. So that's the whole premise of it, is to kind of, share. It's all about sharing the knowledge and stuff. So
and it's a different crop every single year, never the same guy.
Yeah, it's never really the same guys. There's a core group of guys that go there, which is great, So.
You, Thomas Magnuson. Yeah,
Thomas wasn't there this year, but he was there every year prior. So yeah, he's definitely part of the core, and that's there's some really good guys that have been going out there. Hannu Nyquist was there this year from Finland. He was another original network goaltending coach, and Dave Alexander was there this year too from St. Louis, which was unreal to have him. Exactly. And it was great to have. I think he was our first NHL goalie coach that was at the convention, so that was pretty cool too.
And then you guys also had my first ever goalie coach that I ever had when I was 16 years old, Dan Ferguson.
Yeah, Fergie was there.
But that's awesome though. So my next question I have for you, so obviously like we're sitting here in your awesome facility, Finn goalies on the walls is everywhere, it's grown so much. How do you go from you've retired, you're gonna go goalie coaching to where you are full-time now? Like what was the steps? How did that evolve?
Yeah, well my biggest thing was, and I was telling you this earlier too, a couple days ago, is like I was really fortunate when I was younger, when I was 23, 24, started goalie coaching. I really invested in myself and going out and trying to interact with as many good goalie coaches as I could. I got a chance to go to Goalie Pro and work with Jukka Ropinen, and he really opened up my eyes to network with goalie coaches and learning how to actually be a proper goalie coach. So I was really lucky that way to interact with a guy like him right off the hop and actually learn how to be a goalie coach properly. And then it just kind of spiraled from there. I got to meet guys like Justin and interacting with guys like Dave Alexander and Mike Valley and guys like that all the way through, like just interacting with these guys over, and it was just kind of like a snowball of learning from all kinds of different people. And then this is when all these conventions first started popping up. Another big one was Thomas Magnuson. He brought me and Larry Sadler over to Sweden for the World Juniors, and I don't even know what year it was, but I was young, and we got to go to we got to present, and we got to go to their goalie coaches convention during the World Juniors, which was pretty cool. So I was just fortunate. I was really lucky to kind of interact with the right people growing up and learn how to be a goalie coach properly from experts. So. And
when you go to this World Junior Goalie Coaching Convention and you did a presentation, like you said it was cool, like what was so cool about it? What specifically did you see?
Well, there's 300 goalie coaches there, all from Sweden. I think every goalie coach that was in Sweden was there. And there was unreal goalies there, and we all got to watch them practice and watch them play games. Vasilevsky was there, Fucali, Oscar Donsk was there. There's some unreal goalies at that whole thing, so it was really cool.
That would have been 2014?
Yeah.
In that ballpark?
2014, yeah.
Fucali, Comrie, John Gillies?
I think that might have been the year after. I think that might have been the year before. I'm having a hard time remembering, but I know Vasilevsky was there 100%. And UC Saros was there too.
For Team Finland?
Yeah, they won. Finland won that year. And so Saros was there as well.
That might have been 2016 then. Yeah. Like Blackwood and guys like that.
Yeah, no, Fucali was the starting goalie then.
Cali?
Fucali.
Oh, Fucali.
Zach
sorry.
Fucali, yeah.
I was saying Cali Klang, Sweden goalie. Yeah. But when you talk about like goalie coaching the proper way and learning these things from Jukka, what specifically are you talking about? Like what makes a quality goalie coach? What do you learn to put you on the right path?
Yeah, well, he just gave me the foundation, and he was the first guy that allowed me to work with his pro guys, which was cool. Guys like Nicholas Backstrom, just to be on the ice with them and give them some tips and stuff. But the Finnish philosophy was a lot of handwork and no T-push, all shuffle, and a lot of C-cut, which you kind of saw has evolved into, a lot of guys using this lateral release, they call it, or they used to just call it a shuffle drop, which is the same as a lateral release, whatever way you want to call it, fancy or not fancy. But they just kind of really, they have a really good system. And I think the cool thing with the Finnish system is they want to change something up top at the federation. They do it. It trickles down to all the associations and youth. So they kind of develop their style of goaltending through the top. So there's not 100 different goalie guys. Some goalie schools around here you can watch. And when I say around here, I mean Canada. You can watch a certain goalie and say, oh, he's trained with this guy, or he's trained with Jack, or he's trained here, which is actually kind of cool too. It kind of, because everybody's kind of doing their own thing. It's less systematic and it's less structured. But
like a Justin Cardinal goalie in Calgary, like you know when that's a Justin Cardinal goalie.
Yeah, sure, yeah, and that's good and bad too, right? I think that's. It's interesting to see how that works, but even now it's like you're looking at Russian goalies. I think the Russian goalie system is something that is kind of like the new Finnish thing. It's like they're pumping goalies out from some of their clubs, and it's just insane some of the stuff that they're training and teaching. So,
well, two parts to that. I know Pascal Villana, like shout out to my goalie coach Pascal Villana. He recently did a presentation for the Vancouver Canucks about what Ian Clark had been doing with Demko, Martin, and I can't remember his last name, the Latvian goalie, the third guy, just won bronze at the World Championships. That guy, Artur something.
Arminas, or I don't even want to try.
I don't even want to try. Well, apologies to him in advance, but he was talking about how Ian Clark had basically been turning them into the same clone of the same goalies. So once one team cracks one goalie, the lock is the same for everybody. Yeah. And back to the Justin Cardinal thing, one goalie is the same, Aiden Hill is the same as the next guy is the Chad Johnsons of the world, but as opposed to maybe the Finnish system where I don't know if you want to call it a pro or a con, but like they all have that skating style, those active hands. To an extent.
Yeah, and I think the active hands with Finnish guys has always been something that's big. And I think now you see a lot of the Finnish guys when they get into the league, actually they get exposed being a little too army, using their arms a little too much. So now they tighten up, but they have such unreal hand-eye built up when they're younger that it's just an adjustment, right? So
we've been working on that all week basically. Yeah. With the shifts and
shift and lean. I mean, 5 years ago you were here and I was just getting you to stretch and activate all over the place, and I wasn't as developed as a goalie coach as I am now, and now I know from coaching at the pro level from the last 7 or 8 years is, I know that's what you need to improve your game a bit, is to use your size and be tighter and have less holes and work with what you have, right? So, and that's kind of what we've been focusing on more this week, is just focusing on tightening things up and less reacting and more patience, right? So just
using the gift that God gave me of being 6'5".
Yeah,
I didn't get a lot of gifts, but that was one of them, so we might as well use them.
Yeah, and learning how to control the crease, your depth control, and your lateral movements, and just kind of having good stall leans and controlling things. So.
Well, I think if there's one thing too that kind of summed up goaltending as a whole, goalie coaching, is that 5 years ago when I was working with you here, we were talking about keeping the head level. The computer has to stay ears high at the crossbar height, and we're working on it again today. We're just refining the foundation, and that's all goalie coaching really is.
Yeah, and I mean every goalie coach has their strengths of teaching, and I find a lot of this is at the time of year we get a lot of pros in from all over, and sometimes we're working with them for the first time, and that's something that's been happening a lot in the summer, and it's always seems to come back to the same 4 or 5 things that I feel I'm strong at coaching that I want to integrate into their game, and it's like adding. It's not really taken away from what another goalie coach is doing. It's just adding a few things. So that's what's been fun with you. Is like you're on a great program with Pascal right now, and you've worked with lots of different goalie coaches, and you're smart enough to take what you want and throw away what you don't want, but it's been fun to just see that some of the stuff that we picked out this week is working and it's developing. So. Well,
and I think the philosophy that a lot of guys maybe could use some improvement on is try everything once. If it works, great. If not, it's not the end of the world. Yeah. There's not one way to goalie coach, right? Yeah. And you can't throw the same book at everybody. Like I have different strengths.
Yeah, and I think you see that leaving the game a bit. I haven't seen too many like drill sergeant goalie coaches kicking around. Like they're like, this is the way you have to do it, and this is how you have to do it. I just don't see that as much anymore. So it's kind of good to see, right?
And you mentioned the Germans earlier, and funny enough, an experience that I had with you 5 years ago was Nicholas Treudel, and I think Treudel, right?
Yeah.
Okay. He, I think, was the first nasty goalie. First off, I think he was the first experience I ever had watching a legitimate pro, like live in the flesh with my own two eyes, and thinking, my God, this guy is so like the movements are so clean, everything's so crisp, there's no holes. He has that it factor, and I got to see it live and in the person.
Yeah, he's training in your group all week.
I was with him. I shared a net with him for the entire week, and obviously the shooters are like, oh my God, how are we going to beat this guy? Then I come in, and it's like, okay, well, we're going to have some fun now. Yeah. But he really opened my eyes.
Yeah, and the funny thing is like you think of him as like a 6'4" goaltender, but he's not 6'4", right? He's just pushing 6'2" maybe, but he's just a really crazy hard worker, and yet, like you said, has the it factor a little bit. So it's a crazy work ethic, right? I think that's what you see with the pro guys is like their work ethic is kind of unmatched, right? They want more, and if things aren't perfect, they're going to hold you accountable, right? So that's a big thing, right?
But you've coached him with the Ice Tigers many times, right? For a couple of seasons?
Last 2 seasons, yeah. And 5 years he's been coming over here, but he's not here this year, so.
I was looking forward to seeing him.
Thanks Terzi and Tratzi for not showing up, but yeah, that's he's a great goalie and works really hard. So,
but another goalie who's, at least in my opinion, last week kind of opened my eyes again to the wow it factor is Jonas Langman, who we've had out this week. Yeah,
so Langy has been unreal this week. We won a championship in Ravensburg this year. Me and Langy have coached him the last 2 years in Ravensburg, and Langy's one of these goalies who's improved like tenfold. And actually, a lot of the stuff that we've been working on this week was stuff that we tackled the start of 2 years ago, and it's cool to kind of see him, especially in playoffs this year, kind of be the finished product of tightening up his game a bit and changing his footwork. We changed a lot of his like T pushes and shuffles and his depth control. He used to be way out of the crease, challenging all the time. We got him dialed back, he's reading plays better. And he's a goalie. Like I don't know if the stats on it, but he's won 3 DEL2 championships in the last 10 years, and he played in the DEL as well with he was with Terzi, so
which is the top league in Germany for those who maybe don't understand German.
Yeah. So he's one of the winningest DEL2 goalies, I'd imagine. He's on real work ethic, and he's only 31. He's been playing pro hockey since he was 16 or 17. So crazy to see him. And he came over here for almost 4 weeks last year, and he's here for 2.5 this year. So it's like it's cool to have these guys back and see them develop at the age of 30. And they want to get better too. Yeah. So.
And not to jinx it too much, but I know we talked about it with him at lunch the other day. Never had knee, never had hip injuries. Guy's been healthy for the most part, and he plays like a 2. Yeah,
he takes care of himself, right? So that's good.
He mentioned too the other day when we were on ice, he said that you guys worked so much on hands the last 2 years. Yeah. He said that was the biggest change.
Yeah, like a lot of in tight hands, and he had his glove back here a lot. It was stuck, right? So elbows out in front, having full range of motion, just activating in tight, but more than hands, we were working a lot on the leans. So the eyes with the shoulder, getting the leans, and which pushes the hands out, right?
For anybody listening on Apple, Spotify, that's more like a Bobrovsky style with the elbows and everything out?
Yeah, I'd say Bobrovsky's almost your perfect example of that. He doesn't do it so much that he opens up all the time, but it's timing. It's timing in tight and timing in that mid-range. And that's the thing I've been talking a lot to you about is like that hash mark mid-range where you face a lot of shots, where your feet are and how you're leaning and how you can't really fully react with your hands in that situation where you got to be in really good position. So it's kind of a combination of that footwork and your hands and your eyes, obviously your eyes. So
when you say you can't react, we're talking about there's not enough time. If the play isn't too tight, we have to work with our size.
Yeah, I know there's a little graphic out there that says that if it's basically at the hash marks and they're shooting 80 kilometers for a mile an hour or whatever it is can't physically react to a puck. Like your eyes can't do that. So that's where you see a lot of goalies, they can't snap it because it's almost impossible to react. So that's where you're taking in information from the stick blade and what the shooter's doing prior and anticipating, and that's where the whole positioning becomes so important. So
one question I have for you is, I think this week so far, keep in mind we're going to be skating in 2 days for the final time. I think that Bobrovsky counts at 4 this week for how many times you've mentioned him.
Yeah.
Is he your favorite goalie right now?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of funny because obviously a lot of people are probably saying that now, but I've always been a big Bobrovsky fan just from everybody loves his post work, but watching him more in the playoffs too, I feel like I should watch more NHL. Where I'm in Europe during the season quite a bit, I don't feel like I have enough time to watch in the middle of the night, but but it's unreal, and that's a good thing for young kids too, is you got to watch, and if you watch an NHL game, watch the goalie, really watch him, see what he's doing. But yeah, I just love Bobrovsky, how he works his posts, and he flattens out so well too on pass outs, and he gets square to pucks, and the way he uses his hands, and unreal athleticism too. But I think he's a great guy to watch right now, and got to enjoy that he's playing at top level again too. So, it's been cool to kind of see him come back after a couple so years with Florida there with injuries and whatnot. So.
I know we talked about him on ice this week, just how he cranks his knee in so tight and he's able to hinge the way that he can off the pole. It's incredible.
Yeah, and it makes sense, right? Having your knee up underneath your shoulder so you can hinge and push. A lot of guys, you see them, their foot gets driven out. You get no power, right? You got no power, right? You wouldn't do a squat with your feet, outside your shoulders. So, you wouldn't do a lunge or anything like that. So,
I don't know if it would be necessarily a reflection on today's goaltending and how banged around guys' hips are getting. Myself personally, I know post surgery I have more of that range that you're trying to get out of me, as opposed to beforehand there would have been almost none. Yeah. But do you think that maybe a lot of guys can't get that range just because of the wear and tear going on in the hip with the FAI and the pincer?
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing more and more hip injuries in goalies than I think I ever have, or definitely at the pro level, everybody's hips are banged up at least a little bit. And I still believe there's those few lucky guys that never have any hip issues, just genetically, that are really lucky. But I mean, it's almost like an epidemic that you're seeing goalies with bad hips at younger ages now, because they're overtraining when they're younger, and their span on their hips. I've had a few goalies that I have come through that have had some kind of hip surgery at 20, 21. I'm thinking, this doesn't seem right, Even you at 27 is tough, right? So, are you 27? Yeah.
I just turned 27 last week, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's tough, right? But you got to get it done. But
I think it's been very humbling in the sense of beforehand, maybe even at the beginning with all the injuries, was get as many reps as you can, do as much as you can, as often as you can, and that's how you get better, as opposed to post-surgery, it's forced me. I can't skate every single day with you, especially right now with everything recovering. And it's just very humbling in the sense of becoming aware of my body, aware of what I didn't have before, what I do now, and trying to take care of it. Yeah. Because it's very hard. I mean, obviously, it's either great genetics or the surgeon fixes you. Otherwise, you don't have. Yeah,
and I think you see see how hard guys work in the gym here, and how hard guys are. I think that's a big thing in Europe too. Is you see a lot more European guys. At the younger age, obviously professionals are all doing it, and major junior guys hopefully, but you see a lot more younger kids doing their proper pregame warm up and pre-practice. They'll go out and do a full 20 minutes warm up at least 30 minutes of and you see a lot of that hip activation, which is almost a standard in Europe that you don't really see over here in North America as much in the youth levels anyways.
Warming up and getting everything going and lubricated?
Yeah. Even the Mauer, the 22-year-old goalie here from Castle in the DEL2, you see him warming up properly, whether it's at 7:30 in the morning or today at 2:30. He does his 20-30 minutes of his stuff. I saw him doing it. I didn't have to tell him to do that. I have to tell most kids to do that, right?
Well, the pro level, I mean, you're not telling most guys to do that.
No, but he's 22, so if there's some of these younger kids, they might not be programmed into them yet, right? So
well, he's an absolute pro. Yeah. I mean, he's a pro.
And that's it's interesting to see a lot of these younger goalies actually taking care of themselves, which is good, right? A lot more information available to them. So
I was going to say too, maybe in the last couple of years, I feel at least personally, there really isn't that much information about the guys who've had the surgery, the Pecorines have them double cam hip. Even Brad Marchand, who rehabbed his double hip surgery last summer in this very gym that we are recording in right now, he rehabbed in 5.5 months for double hip, but like nobody's talking about these things. The Kucherovs, the I know it's a conspiracy theory, but Vasilevsky getting both hips done as a genetic enhancement prior to being drafted. Like nobody's talking about these things. Nobody's talking about the signs of understanding it, getting checked, and then obviously, I think extending the lifespan that you have out of your body with this ailment. If you want to call it that.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of guys, I can't really speak to it, but I mean, for you, it's like if you can improve your range of motion and you get a surgery, why not? You know, if it's going to help you. So I mean, that's your hip mobility probably before your surgery was not that strong, right? So I feel like before you were struggling to really lean down and get over your knees if you have to sometimes, right? So I mean, obviously that's been. Actually, just thinking about it now, it's probably been an improvement in your game since you've had the surgery that you can actually, lean down and get over pucks. So,
I think that even though just the right side has been done, I find so much more range on the left side. Yeah. And I'm talking to my surgeon about this. The human body as a whole can only deal with so much strain and stress before everything just maxes out, and there's it has to go somewhere. As is it Newton's law of physics? For every force, there's an equal or opposite reaction. Yeah. And so if I'm, pucks in tight and I'm getting low in my stance, well, the hip's maxed out, it goes to the knee. The knee gets maxed out, it goes to the ankle. Now the whole load chain is maxed out, so it has to go to the back, into the elbows, into the shoulders, into the hands. There's nowhere else for it to go. Yeah, exactly. And I think back to the leans that we were working on today, that was something that if we would have tried this 12 months ago, there's no way there would have been any real progress. But like now I have that mobility, and going from 5 degrees of internal rotation pre-surgery to 20, almost 25 now, I feel like a new man. It's incredible. And the day-to-day chronic pain too, like even if I retired tomorrow, I could live my life somewhat comfortably. The plane that I came in on, and by the way, shout out to you for getting me the first class Air Canada lounge pass.
That's from travel, a lot of travel.
50,000 miles, right?
Yeah, 50K.
50,000 miles got you a pass, which got me to the Air Canada Lounge. I'll throw some video on the video version of the podcast. But that was the first time I've been able to somewhat comfortably sit in a flight, jammed in there comfortably. Because obviously, like when you're sitting like this, if you see it in the video version, it's tough. And obviously jamming the plane in like sardines, it makes it very, very difficult. You got to move the leg around, and I was, for the most part, pretty comfortable. It might have been the first class lounge to kind of loosen me up. No alcohol, obviously. The butter chicken was great, but...
Yeah, every lounge is a little different with Air Canada.
I was really hoping for the shower. If they had a shower, I could have used the second sponsor for the show, Manscaped Beard Hedger.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they got the brand new Manscaped Beard Hedger for trimming up your beard, keeping everything tight, keeping everything right. And they also have the lawnmower so that you can groom your shroom so it doesn't look like a hot dog dropping the floor at Costco, all full of hair and all the nasty things you pick up off the floor there. But the Manscaped Beard Hedger has 20 different lengths, 20 different modes that you can do to trim and taper. It also has 90 minutes of battery life. It is waterproof, and it is a beast of a machine. You go to manscaped.com. You can use the code BIZKIT, BIZKIT. It's going to get you 20% off and free shipping only at the team at manscaped.com. And if you're obviously in the Apple or the Spotify version, you just pull over in the car when safe to do so, go on the podcast notes, tap the video, put in the code, 20% off, free shipping only from the team at Manscaped. Nice. Any goalie coaches you think could use that? Groom their shroom?
Probably a lot of them. Probably a few.
It makes me think of the movie Goon. Obviously, a lot of it was based here in Halifax. We're playing divorced men. Marriages in the shitter. Wives are taking half. And he just complains about his wife the whole movie through. It's a great movie.
Yeah, we can all relate to that, I guess. So.
It's another podcast, part 2. But goalie coaching-wise, you mentioned the beefs in the community or whatnot, if you want to call it that, with guys that are coaching in the same proximity. You kind of space everybody out. Everything gets a little bit better. I know we talked at dinner earlier tonight about guys that maybe say, let's say they take credit for goalies that they haven't really done all that much work with. I don't know where the fine line would be, because if, let's say, you and me have worked our entire lives together, and then I go and skate with so-and-so for like one skate, I just pop on the ice, and I get drafted. Now he's congratulating me on being drafted, all this kind of stuff. It's more of a marketing, I guess, scam when you've done all the work.
Yeah, I guess, we talked about that as, kind of a hot topic. And I'd say, like I was saying to you, I'd say probably 90% of the goalie coaches don't do that, but you got the odd person that is really tries to lay claim to goalies sometimes. And at the end of the day, and it's like what I said, like me personally, I explained how I feel about, I have a goalies, you know, like we mentioned earlier, like the Langvin and the Turtsy and that, like, am I their goalie coach or was their goalie coach? Right now, I'm helping them out, yeah. I was a seasoned goalie coach, and I'm his summertime goalie coach right now. But there was a whole bunch of other goalie coaches that worked with him leading up to this, you know. And the same with within my own program, you know. There's a guy like Oliver Schmidt playing in the Del 2. He started training here when he was 13. I've worked with him all the way through. He's a guy I feel like I can say, like, yeah, he's like my goalie that I brought up. But he has all kinds of other goalie coaches helping him out throughout the years too. So it's like, I always just like to say, like, you know, if you say like, oh, Trav came to my camp, are you his goalie coach? I'll say, well, I help him out.
You may not be my specific goalie coach. I mean, I know Pascal obviously gets that title, but guys like you, Derek Bujan, even Steve McKeegan to an extent, like you're all guys that have, I think, played a very important role in helping me become the goalie and ultimately the man that I am today. And the credit has to go where credit is due. Obviously, Pascal getting the biggest slice of the pie, but the rest.
Yeah, and that's, you know, and I guess it comes down to is if somebody gets upset over somebody saying that, then that's where the problem is, you know. But I just saying, like, if you're saying that Pascal's your goalie coach, and then one of the other goalie coaches is there saying that, no, Trav, I coach him all the time. He's my goalie, you know. I guess that's where the problem would happen, maybe. I don't know, but I don't see a lot of it. I don't see a lot of it in the goalie coaching community, maybe only a little bit, maybe one or two programs really. So, I mean, that's...
I know we talked about it at dinner, but like that fine line though of, is it a marketing scam by some goalie coaches, or is it a genuine proud of you and thank you for all your hard work?
Yeah.
And trusting.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, right? If you have a goalie and he makes NHL, he wins whatever, does awesome. If you're putting your blood, sweat, and tears, 500 hours with him, 600 hours, for sure you got to. It's good to congratulate the guy, and also it's great for the program if you have guys that are successful. So you got to let people know that you're working with successful goaltenders. Because unfortunately, in Canada and the United States, every goalie coach has to have, basically, that wants to do it full time, has to have their own little mini business. Or big business with some places, and that's the only way you got to do marketing. So that's just, it's all dependent on the person and their morals and what they believe in. So I think probably in areas like Toronto and other big markets, probably Calgary too, there's a lot less room for goalie coaches to get into the business because there's so many good goalie coaching programs and so many goalie coaching programs in general. So that's when you start hearing about people laying claim to certain goalies just so they can get a couple clients. But I don't know. I feel like that it always finds its people figure out where they need to go eventually. So
you say you've generated a good amount of clients from the online, the Instagram realms and whatnot of posting Finn goalie online?
Yeah, I think basically, yeah, I'd say I consider myself like an OG Instagram goalie coach. Like, I think at one point I was one of the more followed goalie coaches online. Not anymore, but like I was at one point with, you know, we have 13,000 followers now, but like back then we had that like maybe 4 or 5 years ago. So like I think originally, yeah, like it helped out. It helped bring lots of guys here from all over the world. So before it was just goalies from Halifax, now it's goalies from all over. So, and I don't know, I always use it as like a positive tool, you know, like just sharing goalie drills. That's all it really ever was just sharing goalie drills. And then obviously now it's a little bit more goalie drills and a little bit of goalie advice, but it's still basically just sharing goalie drills and showing people what we're up to.
I was going to say too, on top of that, now you're doing, well, not so much now, but more so in the last couple of years, you're doing the pegs, you're doing the Xtractor, you have all these other products that are coming out in addition to the goalie coaching realm?
Yeah, so over a couple beers when I first started goalie coaching, I needed pegs, and I went online to find pegs, couldn't find them anywhere. They were like really expensive to order, just crappy metal pegs, and I said, there's got to be a way to make these pegs, you know. So I came up with this idea basically to make these plastic anchors so they wouldn't freeze in the net.
What year are we talking, roughly?
Probably 8 or 9 years ago now. I can't even remember the year that we made them. Probably 9 years at least. 9 years, yeah. And so I made like the first anchor peg, and it was just like a really hard plastic with 2 screws side by side, so they go into the ice. So like when the goalies are pushing, the net doesn't dislodge as easy, and when somebody slams on the front, it'll pop off. And you know, got lucky on. Actually, the very first try we used 3 spikes, and the 3 spikes didn't work.
It didn't.
No, it took huge chunks out of the ice. So we came up with the 2 spikes, and then that was the original anchor peg. And I put them online just because I had a web store, and put them on Twitter. I'd made too much. Like I just made the plastic. I made 20 of them. I only needed 10. And I said, yeah, I got 10 sets of these things. They work pretty good. Called them anchor pegs. And I sold 10 of them right away for $80 a set. Inflation kills things, but yeah, I sold 10 right away, and I said, oh, maybe there's a little side selling to this, or business, or help goalie. It was basically just to help goalie coaches out. All of a sudden, the arena started getting them, and you know, NHL teams started getting them. You know, like almost every NHL team had bought those original white sets because they go around to these practice arenas that had crappy pegs. I never would have thought an NHL team would need pegs, that they didn't have the marsh peg system, but you know, sometimes they go to a practice arena and they just like the arena we're at, there's no embedded pegs. So yeah, so we came up with those, and then I thought about having the screws being adjustable, so you could upper and lower the adjustability on the ice. So you know, if it's a thicker ice, you could go lower, and if it's a short ice, you could go shorter. So that was kind of the second evolution, and I thought, it'd be cool if we didn't have to put the postcards on with the peg. So then I came up with the most popular one for practices is the Guardian. So now we have the baby blue Guardian that you see all over every arena, goalie programs and whatnot. So just kind of spiraled out of control at some point, and just kept trying to make different versions. But it's been a process trying to bring them back after COVID. Like COVID kind of killed everything, and
like getting product.
Yeah, getting product in, and the pricing like quadrupled, and it's just been a absolute mess to try and get that back. And I think you're seeing that in the gear world too, stuff not being available, stuff being made differently. It's just been a disaster that way. So yeah, that was the whole peg. The whole peg thing was it was really fun, and the best part about it was I got to interact with like tons of cool goalie coaches, and lots of phone calls, and you know, 10% of it would be talking about the pegs, and 50% talking about goalie coaching, and goaltenders. And so that was another way of learning more about goaltending as I was growing up through the goalie coaching world. And then
who's the coolest guy you met out of the whole endeavor?
Oh,
not to single out the guys that maybe weren't as cool, but if there was one that comes to mind, like
I'm trying to think. I honestly just like. Yeah, like probably like interacting with guys like Freddie Brathwaite for pegs was like really, I thought that was really, he was an unreal guy, really cool, like fun guy got to meet him a lot at Hockey Canada stuff too. So he was always a great guy to interact with. And, you know, sending pegs to the Montreal Canadiens was really cool, just because that was my favorite team growing up, and to see them being used in the NHL in Montreal was cool. So, but yeah, like there's most of the goalie coaches were the email. So, but the odd guy that called was always really fun, you know. So.
And then a more recent one, the Xtractor. Jordan Bennington was the big catalyst behind that.
Yeah, I'd say Jake Allen was really the first guy that was really using it consistently with the Blues, and obviously that story has another great story to it. So Dave Alexander and Mike Valley had this concept idea of making this Xtractor, which people are familiar with. Maybe you can throw a picture up or something, but there's lots of pictures online of Alan and those guys wearing it. But they came to me to kind of formalize the product because they knew I had some product at this point. I had some product knowledge on how to actually take a piece of rubber that they're tying to a goalie's helmet and make it a product, and fix it up a bit and clean it up and clean the shape up and make the straps work properly. So it's still funny too, thinking about how we made the prototype after they sent us kind of like their mock-up prototype, just like a piece of rubber, and then me and a goalie coach, a good friend of mine, Evan Mosier, sat in my basement for like a week trying to make a working prototype. We're taking it to like tailor shops and then we sent it off to a production company and we got a formalized Xtractor. So yeah, Mike Valley and Dave approached me about that whole project and made me part of the group, which was unreal, and we launched it that year. So me and Evan Mosier went down the year that the St. Louis Blues won the Stanley Cup. We delivered we made a little trip out of it. We said it'd be cool for some promotion and whatnot to actually give Dave a few sets of the actual Xtractor in Boston at their pregame skate and go to the game that night. So St. Louis was playing Boston. At that time, St. Louis was in the bottom of the Western Conference. I think maybe even close in the league. It was a while ago, so I think they're down in the basement. Bennington, I think, was just recently called up, backing up, and Allen was the starting goalie that night. So Bennington actually was testing the Xtractor and whatnot when we were around. So that was pretty cool. And those guys, from what I heard or what I was told, that they were, I know for sure Alan was using it consistently, and he was on Sportsnet talking about it before. So he uses it consistently, or was using it consistently, and then St. Louis obviously went on that big run and won the Stanley Cup, which was cool to see. So that was a cool start to the product, and it was a good story. I don't know if it was really shared that much at the time, but it's cool to kind of share that story that that the Xtractor was invented that same year, and maybe they used it a little bit, maybe they didn't. You can never really pump it up and say. Some people probably would be like, yeah, they use it every day. I don't know, maybe they use it a few times. And the whole concept behind the Xtractor, for people that are wondering, it basically makes you visually square to the puck. So when the puck's coming in, it forces your nose over pucks and nose down and watching it all the way in. And reminds me we got to use it this week a little bit. We haven't even dabbled in that because we've been focusing on other stuff. But it's a great tool to use that earlier in practice. You can, if your flow drills, it's a great way to make those flow drills a little bit more challenging and work on your tracking and using your eyes. I know some people don't like the word tracking, but use your eyes and watch the puck all the way in.
You hear that? You hear that? That's Steve McKeegan punching his radio, listening here somewhere.
Yeah, whenever I'm saying those little catch buzzwords, I hear his voice being like, "Oh, you guys are like," but he's a good. He seems to be, I've always had great interactions with him. So, but it's true. Everybody's using these buzzwords, but it's watching the puck all the way in is basically what it makes it does, and it's great for little kids watching the puck all the way in, and it's used for pros for different things.
I just want to say for the record too, just in case, I know Steve does watch the podcast, but I have nothing but respect for Steve, and Steve is a man who changed my life, and it is fun to take the piss out of him sometimes.
Yeah. So. I think he does the same to you too.
Assuming that he hasn't destroyed his stereo and he can still listen to the rest of the podcast. But you guys talking about tracking? We called that watching the puck in when I was.
But it's funny with the Xtractor. It's like there's not many products for goalies for training that are like that a parent could buy for their kid, like a goalie training product. Maybe the catch ball is another good one.
The goalie band.
Yeah, the goalie band. He's emailing 20 people right now somewhere.
It's in my junk box somewhere.
Yeah, there's a lot of goalie coaches that have that guy blocked for sure. I mean, is it a gimmick? No, it does work. I've seen the results at a high level, and I've seen the results with younger kids. Do you need to have like a 7-year-old using it? No, like it's not gonna. They have too many other things to learn before they can start using it. Probably like when you're 12, 13, you can start using it and practicing and watching pucks all the way in with it. And some guys love it, some people hate it. it's a product, but it's been used by a lot of NHL guys. I think there's at least 6 or 7 of them that use it. I see it a lot in the summer training with some of these NHL guys, and then pro teams we send out to all kinds of pro teams. So it's a product,
Well, to quote the Detroit legend, Kid Rock, Robert Ritchie, everything in moderation, including moderation itself. Yeah. When it comes to training, but this has been a fun conversation to share with you. If anybody has any questions about the AnchorPegs, the Xtractor, Finn Goalie itself, goalie coaching, where to reach you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Where can they reach you though? How can they get in touch?
fingoalie.ca, fingoalietraining@gmail. We have a TikTok too, but I always forget to post on it.
Yeah, you and Derek Boujam may be the only goalie coaches on TikTok right now.
I'm barely on it. I got to get on it though. That's where everybody's watching stuff now.
I'm thinking Rumble. I think Rumble's the next place to start posting goalie content. Maybe I'm a lunatic.
I got no idea what that is. But.
It's like an uncensored YouTube. Like you can post whatever you want. I don't know. Maybe I'm a nut. But anyway, this is an episode of Slangin The Bizkit with Jack Hartigan, owner of Finn Goalie, the pride of Nova Scotia, Halifax, Nova Scotia, the beautiful place on the.
Yeah, got to check Halifax out. It's a great spot.
And to quote the legends from the movie Goon, by the way, my regular co-host Dave Wheeler, he's off this week, but he was in the movie Goon. By the way, he was a sportscaster in the movie. But to quote the Lebanese restaurant owner, water down the donair sauce. Nobody get excited.
Yeah, can't water down the donair sauce though.
Anyway, I want to say thank you very much for joining the show, and to everybody, we do a new episode every single Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern. That is 10 in Winnipeg, 9 in Calgary, 8 on the West Coast. YouTube, Apple, and Spotify if you're on the video version. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button for new shows every single week. If you're on the Apple or Spotify, leave a review. Let us know what you think of the show, and I look forward to sharing the next conversation with whoever's on next week.